I'm Blaise Gomez. Welcome to the United States Military Academy at West Point. This is where the nation's best and brightest train to become officers in the U.S. Army. West Point is an iconic institution that goes back for more than 200 years. For most of its history, it was all male and mostly white.
Now it's co-ed and ethnically diverse. The academic dean who oversees the Cadet Corps has made history as the first woman appointed to the role at West Point. We want to introduce you to Brigadier General Cindy Jebb, who's taking the lead. Between the salutes and the pleasantries, Brigadier General Cindy Jebb sees a reflection of her earlier self.
Good luck with the rest of the semester.
In today's West Point cadets. More than 40 years ago, Jebb marched down an historic path, a cadet in one of the first co-ed classes at the oldest military academy in the United States. Her role now,
Get knowledge.
overseeing the education of thousands of cadets every year on track to rise through the ranks in the U.S. Army. In 2016, she became West Point's first female dean, appointed by President Barack Obama and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. It's the culmination of a journey Jebb started at the age of 17 when the Clarkstown South High School graduate from New City entered West Point as a cadet in 1978.
As women coming in, and there were 120, if I have this right, 128 of us, 64 graduated. We were sprinkled throughout the Corps. It was a hard time. Not everybody, and you could feel it, not everybody was thrilled that women were at West Point.
The late 60s and early 70s was a time of monumental shift in many of the oldest universities in America. Several of the Ivy Leagues had turned co-ed. By 1976, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point moved in the same direction. General William Westmoreland was one of the fiercest critics against coeducation at his alma mater. A former superintendent of West Point, Westmoreland told the Associated Press that women are not physically able to lead in combat. He said maybe you could find one woman in 10,000 who could lead in combat, but she would be a freak. We are not running a military academy of freaks. So the women at West Point had their own uphill battle to climb on campus, and it took time.
While I knew that not everybody might have agreed to it, they realized it was their duty to make it work. And so I did see officers who maybe did not agree, but also knew they were duty-bound, to make it work.
Jebb's interest in the academy and the military itself was a stroke of fate. As a high school athlete from a civilian family, Jebb came across an article about West Point's first female basketball team.
And that's how I found out about West Point. It talked about the first women's basketball team. Back then, endearingly, I'll share, called the Sugar Smacks. But the article talked about West Point in terms of its mission, the idea of being part of something bigger than yourself, the idea of developing the whole person, being part of a team, so that all spoke to me.
Despite the early challenges of being a woman at West Point, Jebb showed signs of the leader she would one day become, focusing on Army Corps values similar to those first instilled into her by her parents and through her love of sports.
That sports teaches you a lot about life, right? You learn about teamwork, you learn about sportsmanship, you learn about inculcating habits of discipline and those kinds of things, knowing what it means to compete.
You learn about winning and losing.
That's exactly right. And I think probably the biggest lesson, right? How do you come back after a loss? Having that foundation early on was so helpful as I went forward and explored different ways to contribute in the military. Felt I had, from the get-go, an opportunity to really go after dreams and feel and give, and through that, given the confidence that with hard work you can achieve anything that you think is really important in life.
Jebb went on to become captain of the women's varsity volleyball team.
Being on sports teams, that was a nice way to to get to know other women.
While the integration of men and women in the armed forces has progressed over 4 decades, all branches of the military continued to battle headlines of sexual misconduct allegations. In January 2019, the Pentagon released a study showing a sharp rise in sexual assaults at West Point over the previous 2 years. At West Point, the top brass acknowledge the huge task at hand as they work towards setting the right tone and culture.
It really does require vigilance, that as a values-based institution, that we always need to be leading in the way of stamping out anything that even smells of sexism, racism, you name it, any bad ism, if you will. And that's really, really important. This is a people organization. The Army is all about people. West Point is all about developing people. It really starts with the expectation that the culture is one of respect, it's one of dignity, it's one of inclusivity, and language matters. And so not to be afraid to be called, oh, you're too sensitive. But no, if there is exclusive language going on, that sends a signal. What walk of life, no matter what race, what religion, ethnicity, no religion, gender, etc., that it's all about who we are as a human working in this space to become professionals in a very important activity, which is defense of our country. But it's something that has to be continually worked upon. And I will tell you, I feel very confident that this is where we lead.
General Jeb also unexpectedly found herself leading in the face of enormous loss several times over the course of a year. In 2019, West Point suffered the loss of several cadets in back-to-back tragedies. Peter Zhu killed in a skiing accident. Chris Morgan killed in a training exercise.
22-year-old senior Christopher Morgan was a star athlete and wrestler from West Orange, New Jersey. Morgan died when the military vehicle he and 20 others were riding in yesterday suddenly overturned on rough wooded terrain.
Benjamin Botchler died in a cliff diving accident.
Then Cade Carita died by apparent suicide.
The body of the West Point cadet, missing since Friday, has now been found and right inside the campus of the U.S. Military Academy.
His body was found in the basement of a campus building after a 4-day search.
It was a lot for the community to absorb. And during those times, it's really important that we as a community come together, that we come together, have those conversations, that we stress the importance of seeking out help, right? So this is also something on college campuses, that mental health is not something to be afraid of in terms of reaching out for help. It's not a stigma. It shouldn't be. In fact, it's a sign of strength when you reach out for counseling or for whatever help that you need. And that is something that we're stressing here at West Point. We had counseling sessions set up after Cadet Carita's passing. We had it in parallel with classes. So we basically told cadets, if you feel better in a class, if you feel better going to whatever you need, right? And we set up these counseling sessions. So I attended one of the counseling sessions. And I told everybody in that counseling session, I'm not here to observe. I'm here to heal as well, because I'm also hurting. So I'm here to get help. Clearly devastating, right? Whenever you see some, experience that kind of loss. And it's been for not just the cadets, but the staff and faculty.
Difficult lessons of loss and perseverance that Jeb knows will stay with the cadets well into their military careers.
The motto of West Point is duty, honor, and country. In addition to those 3 pillars, coming up next, General Jeb explains how family, especially her husband, helped her rise through the ranks. Love of country is at the core of West Point as each cadet develops leadership skills to bring from the classroom onto the battlefield. mandated by Congress, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point educates about 1,100 cadets per class to eventually serve in the U.S. Army as a commissioned leader of character. The motto, duty, honor, country, is the bedrock of the academy. Those words linked together all around campus. A special place with cadets from every state, plus international students sent by other governments. On campus, women are still underrepresented, making up 25% of the cadet corps.
This is where it should be that they're...
But Brigadier General Cindy Jebb is carving out a fresh path forward as the first female dean at the 220-year-old institution.
I'm very grateful for the men and women who came before me. I'm in this role because there were a lot of people before me who opened up doors, who General Caslin, selected me as dean while he had a woman commandant. It's very different, and I always will really look at that as something of a courageous leader to do at that time.
Jebb wants to strengthen the cadet corps by ensuring it's a reflection of America. And while the gender ratio tilts heavily male, West Point is making strides on the diversity front. Lieutenant General Darrell Williams is the first African-American superintendent to oversee the military academy. The 2019 graduating class was the most ethnically diverse ever. The most female graduates reaching 200, the most Latino graduates ever. And this snapshot went viral. 34 black female cadets about to graduate, a symbol of breaking barriers that energize the public far and wide. The cadets made an appearance on NBC News, talking openly about the highs and lows.
There are some moments here where you feel like, oh, am I worthy? Do I deserve to be here?
I definitely struggled sometimes because sometimes I'd be like the only woman of color or even women in general in one of my classes.
Every time I step into a new class, I count and I'm like, I guess it's just me today.
The ongoing journey of reaching milestones and knocking down barriers is a challenge that General Jebb embraces because of the potential she sees on campus.
What really is inspiring are the cadets. And, I continually learn from them, right? They come here from all different backgrounds. They come here with all different dreams, but all sharing the common vision of what is really encapsulated in our West Point mission. I love working with our staff and faculty. Again, we're all here. It's such a dynamic place when you think about all that is happening on the military side, on the physical side, in academia, grounded in the character that is so important. But we're all here for one common purpose, and that is the common defense of the Republic, and that's what makes this place such an inspiration.
Before becoming dean, General Jebb spent a decade at the academy teaching political science, sharing knowledge from her experience serving abroad in Africa and the Middle East.
You're certainly an inspiration to me. How do you manage all of your duties and all of your responsibilities? Because you're not just here, you're also a mother, you're a wife.
I feel very humbled and honored to have the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Service that Jebb credits largely to her husband and fellow West Point classmate Joel.
Even while we were dating here, we had, he was a great support. He would come to my volleyball matches, and we were in some classes together. So we were truly teammates, right? By the time we were getting married.
The classmates married 3 days after graduating from West Point in 1982. While in graduate school at Duke University in the early 90s, the couple started a family with the births of their sons Ben and Alex.
Joel's a phenomenal father, a phenomenal husband, so it's definitely been something that we have taken on together.
Both Jebbs juggled teaching careers within the military. Joel was a philosophy and composition teacher. When their third child and only daughter, Olivia, was born, the couple reached a professional crossroads.
There was a point in our careers where we had to make a decision in terms of who was going to be able to continually get promoted. And that was a decision as a family we made, and I'll always be grateful, right, to Joel that we put our family first, and he helped me continue to be in a position to continue to contribute in these ways.
In other words, Joel agreed to be the parent who stayed at home, while Jeb served at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas and then taught in Newport, Rhode Island at the War College. There's one memory that remains vivid during this hectic time of parenting.
Pulling out of the driveway when the kids were 4, 3, and 1. I think if you talked to him and he turned back to the house, we were both thinking, oh my gosh, you know. But I think making sure that, and the reason why I felt comfortable doing that is because I knew the kids were in a very loving, supportive home. My parents were not too far away. It was a lot of coordination, you know, between my husband and myself in terms of how we were going to manage it. There were times, you know, people talk about having balance. I don't know if we ever felt balance. It was always this or like this, and that was fine, but it was all worth it, right? So you decide what's important, and we felt it was really important, so we managed it. I remember as I was working on my dissertation, we were at Fort Meade. I was a brigade operations officer at the time, which is pretty challenging, and I remember Joel would say, on Sundays, I've got the kids for 5 hours. And I knew I had 5 hours, and that was it to get my dissertation, you know, whatever I was working on to get it done. So I think it also forces you to be very focused.
Exactly. It's a military operation on a smaller scale at home.
I think so. I think so. But as you can see, I mean, it's the phrase, it takes a village, it truly does.
To this day, Jeb says it was her husband's unwavering support that lifted her to professional success. A narrative very similar to the life of another public servant, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose husband also supported her in the late 1950s when she was a pioneer in the male-dominated world of law. In 2018, the two met as General Jeb hosted a fireside chat with the Supreme Court Justice. The fight for equal rights was the theme. Her children, now in their 20s, leading successful lives of their own.
How proud are your children of you?
Yeah, it's mutual. It goes both ways. They've now are on paths themselves in terms of contributing in ways that are powerful. So they're all following their dreams, which is great to see, right? It's wonderful. You're a parent, right? Is when you see your children just going after their dreams, working hard, right? So we, just as I mentioned that my mom and dad taught the importance of hard work and being thoughtful and the importance of education, I think Joel and I tried to also inculcate those values with our kids.
Now Jeb, who's 59, continues to immerse herself in building the next generation of leaders.
We're all here for one common purpose, and that is the common defense of the Republic, and that's what makes this place such an inspiration.
Here at West Point, there are many statues of famous graduates like President Eisenhower and General Patton. Coming up next, what General Cindy Jeb says leadership looks like to her. Along the picturesque Hudson River, the military academy at West Point is where thousands of the nation's best and brightest train to become officers in the U.S. Army. At the helm of their education is the academy's first female dean of the academic board. Brigadier General Cindy Jeb's military career has come full circle, once a cadet here at a historic time when women were first allowed in. For centuries, the academy was all male and mostly white, graduating generations of male leaders and household names like Douglas MacArthur, Robert E. Lee, Dwight Eisenhower, George Patton, and David Petraeus. But now, women are on that list of distinguished leaders too, a growing list that includes General Jeb.
I'm building off of people who came before me, right? The trajectory has been like this, and I've just been very, I feel very honored and humbled to be able to continue to make those advances here at the Academy. I like experimenting and piloting a lot, which means my role is to underwrite risk, right? When you do that, that it's okay to fail as you're trying new things.
So far, Jeb has taken her role as leader here in stride, making changes to class schedules, curriculum, and the way cadets are taught. Cadets who will someday be leaders themselves in the U.S. Army.
What's at stake when we think about the future and how important it is to invest in our cadets now. So in terms of my leadership style is creating those conditions where people can just continue to flourish.
That's all for this episode of Taking the Lead. I'm Blaise Gomez at West Point. Thanks for watching.